this business, just like law enforcement, is a profession where people have a lot of different types of emotional reactions, right? Whether it's excitement, it's sadness, it's anger. And so being able to effectively communicate with them and remove emotion from the equation, it's something that's invaluable.
You had unwavering commitment for law enforcement. And coming from a law enforcement background, you have a sense of integrity and responsibility for one, yourself, your family, and the people around you that you're involved with protecting and helping overall. So you essentially burnt your boat with law enforcement, and your level of commitment into real estate was probably at one of the highest levels. So you gave yourself no option but to succeed.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Your coach, Tom Vanacore, said you have one of the most moldable mindsets.
Coachable?
No, moldable mindsets. Okay. Because of the fact that you went from being in the force, making X amount of money, to making 8 times that in a year. And it's not something that anybody could do, right? Unless you have a high level of commitment in making it work no matter what. Like a level 5 commitment is like, it's done. It's gridiron, it's done. 4 level commitment is like, I'm going to get it done. I'll do it no matter what. But if something comes up and I have an excuse, then maybe, like, it's circumstantial. But that's extremely impressive. How does someone have that unwavering mindset where they don't let complacency kick in after 2 multiples or 3 multiples of the income you and your family were used to?
Well, I think a lot of my efforts are motivated not as much by income, but more from a relentless pursuit of perfection. Like, if that makes sense. Like, I'm the type of person where, like, good is not good enough, right? And so even if I develop something, a system, right, for my business, and it's operating as intended, and it's operating correctly, like, I'm still constantly trying to refine it and tinker it with it and see if there's another evolution that can kind of make it better. And I think that kind of pursuit really was the thing that continues to keep me motivated, right? Like, I'm never been one to rest on my laurels and kind of say, okay, like, I'm good enough right now. That's fine. I'm going to take my foot off the gas. I think, it's kind of one of those things where there's one speed and it's go.
I'm a lot like that though too. Like, I see a lot of you, like in myself, I think, where I'm just constantly trying. Like, if I have more, I'm the worst person. Like,
I'm the worst person
with a deadline, right? Like, if something's due on Friday at 4:00, I will be refining it and improving it and tweaking it and changing it until the deadline.
Yeah.
Just if I know I have more time, it could always be better. So, I mean, even leading up to this interview, Anthony must have messaged me 10 times, and I'm not busting your chops. He's like, what are we going to be talking about? Give me some warm-ups. Give me some sample questions. Let's review it. Let's go through it. Let's talk. Like, and again, I'm not busting your chops. I actually appreciate that.
You would be the same exact way.
But I'm the same exact way. Because when I'm like going on a call or anything, I'm like, hey, I want to be prepared. I don't want to look like an idiot. I want to show up, know what we're talking about. Are we talking about family, or are we talking about real estate? Are we talking about being a cop, or are we talking about how many homes did we sell last year? Give me some sort of preparation. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah. And, I think that's a skill set that I acquired from my career in law enforcement too. So much of that career is being prepared. Yeah. As a New Jersey Transit police officer, we were afforded the opportunity for significant training. And that was always at the forefront of my mind. Like, hey, if you're at work, you need to be prepared. And I think that's also one of those things where, whether it's going on a showing or going on an interview, it's just always being prepared for what you're about to encounter. And thinking through the situation. Hey, what are the questions I might be asked, or what are the things that I might need to answer for? So preparation, I think, is also a big part of my recipe for success as well.
Yeah. Well, you show up unprepared for a listing appointment, you don't get the listing. You show up unprepared as a cop, you could have other consequences.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So there's no option really in the former business.
And you're with Weicker in downtown Jersey City.
We're in Hoboken. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Hoboken. My bad. I was the one in Jersey City when I first started. But the one thing that's especially about those bigger brokerages is that when you are working in them, you see a lot of agents in the office, and you see a lot of different personalities, a lot of different kinds of people's ambitions, visions, and all that mix. I'm just curious, what were some of the things that were easy for you to do that you saw other people struggle in regards to, like, work ethic, whether it was time management, whatever the case may be, that you were like, if that person just had that, they'd probably be successful? Because I think that would tell us what was the training that made the biggest difference in your transition as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the hard work part is definitely a major component of it, right? And not only just like showing up to work, but being willing and able to actually do the work. And, being in the office and being present and actually working while you're there instead of, being distracted. Yeah. I mean, it's tough because everybody wants to be social. I think, all real estate agents are persons on some level. Otherwise they wouldn't be attracted to this career. But to me, it was like, if I'm going to put in a 10-hour workday, then I want to be working for 9 out of those 10 hours, right? Like that's a big part of it, I think.
Yeah. So efficiency was important in comparison to what you saw around. What other traits did you see that were limited in the environment or limited in the environment of agents that you see?
Well, I also think, having a growth mindset is a big thing, right? I mean, we talked a little bit in the beginning of the podcast about the importance of mindset and things like that. But to kind of circle back to something I just said too, it's that constantly looking to improve, right? And so I'm a firm believer that a lot of my success, whether in the police force or in real estate, can directly be tied to people who I, selected as mentors, right? And people who mentored me and kind of showed me the ropes. And I think that having the type of personality where I wasn't afraid of critical feedback.
The one thing that's also in, there's a movie called The Pursuit of Happiness. You guys both watched it?
Yeah.
Years ago, yeah.
And this also kind of ties in Price Pratchett's book, U Squared. So in The Pursuit of Happiness, when Will Smith is like, trying to figure out ways to up his effectiveness and his competition, people around him, so he wouldn't drink as much water, so he doesn't pee as much, so he can make more calls, right? Everybody that was around him that were starting from the bottom of the leads that they'd give them, like the people that were like blue collar, right? He was like, screw this, I'm just gonna start from the top. And he went for the richest CEO, and then he got a meeting, and then he was in there, whatever the case is, presented right in front of one of the wealthier people. I'm just speaking, I'm projecting my issue onto you. When I first started, my biggest fear was, well, these people who own multi-million-dollar places aren't going to want to talk to me. Like, I should probably talk to the guys who own like $150,000 houses in like the hood, or, 300, 400. If I got a $500,000 listing, I'll be jumping up for it. But you did a really good job for like building a niche and starting from the top and attacking it with such confidence and adding so much value to those clients that they now are like in your sphere, in your database. How did you get to that point?
Well, I think it's a combination of things, but really just kind of understanding people, being able to kind of communicate well. I often think back to a story as like one of the first brownstones in Hoboken that I ever sold. And, the lead came from a paid lead source, right? It was a Zillow call connected to this young couple. And they're like, hey, we, want to come see this home. And I knew my market at the time, so I knew the place was vacant. So I said, all right, come on, sure. Come in, I'll show you today. And so they came across the river and, eventually wound up buying this home. And, at one point the husband remarked to me like, well, how did you know we were serious, right? Like we're just two young kids looking at this super expensive $3 million home. And, I said like, how did I know you're not, And it was kind of one of those things where, I mean, listen, I think I've developed a good way of kind of judging personalities from my former profession, but, I've always been somebody who at face value, you have to believe in people, right? Like if they're kind of looking for these things and these types of homes, why not show them? And if for nothing else, it's also the opportunity for me to get to see the property too. So, I think that being the type of person who was not going to say like, hey, yeah, you shouldn't do that, or you shouldn't see that, or whatever. I think that definitely helped a lot, but just understanding people and their motivations too, I would say was probably the biggest factor.
Yeah. The biggest thing is that you weren't transactional. Like as you were talking, I'm thinking he wasn't transactional, he was relational. He was focused on developing that relationship and understanding what their needs and wants were. And it's one of my coach always says, don't let the reactions of the unmotivated people dictate the way you treat the motivated.
Yeah.
So it's always, everybody gets a clean slate. So that's really impressive that you did that. That's awesome.
You said that you had learned from your prior position as a lieutenant how to read people.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit more about that and how that made you a better real estate agent.
There's a lot of components, I think, to that comment, right? Like on like a behavioral level of kind of picking up nonverbals and things like that. I mean, we went through extensive training because the biggest mission of our agency was counterterrorism. And so we were trained to kind of understand what the baseline of an environment is and how people should kind of be acting and things like that and things to look for. But, I think that also having the ability to kind of talk to anybody, right? I mean, most times as a police officer, you're dealing with people in supercharged emotional environments, right? Stressful situations. And so you have to learn really quick how to empathize with people and how to connect with them. And I think that those are two really big traits that successful agents likely have developed. I mean, you have to listen, people are buying the agent just as much as they're buying the property. Mm-hmm. And so when they connect with you on a deeper level, and like you said, KIRO, about being relational versus transactional, like that shines through. I mean, there's only so much magic before people see who you really are. Yeah. And when they do, you want them to have the same person that you presented and not somebody who's different. So
I honestly think one of your magic attributes or your gifts is that, it's funny because we talk about in skill development, a downswing is when you want to seem as a person of authority, and you use that when you're talking to someone to display a level of authority and when you need a response back, not when it's optional. And we always give the example of a cop pulling up to a driver's side window saying license and registration. Do you know why I'm pulling you over? And it's in a way that's a downswing. When you
when you're, just to give people some more familiarity, like when you're going through like the expired script, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of people, what's the first line? Hi, I'm looking for the owner. And hi, I'm looking for Anthony. And they have an upswing because they're new to the script and they don't have the confidence with the script.
John does a really good job of when somebody says, oh yeah, we're interviewing this person. He's like, you're interviewing that person? Upswing instills insecurity without him saying anything bad about them.
Raising doubt.
Really? That person? And he gets even higher from there. But with the authority figure of using a downswing, that instills trust in the person, saying this is the vote of confidence. I know this person knows what they're doing. So having been in a world where you need to be the authority figure to control people's emotions and let them kind of have an equilibrium between emotional and logical, so that way they can think clearly without being charged in either direction, is a gift that takes so much time, and it's such a struggle to use as an agent. So I think that's super powerful.
And I think just his even keel. I mean, like, what's funny though is like once you see Anthony as a lieutenant or a cop, you can't unsee it, right?
No, I can't see it.
as soon as he told me that, I was like, oh shit, man! Like the shaved head. I was like, this guy. Like now, I just see you from across the room, and I'm like I'm almost a little nervous because I'm like, I gotta get my, I gotta be on my best behavior because there's a cop. But I think that's probably one of your superpowers, and you may not even know it yet. Is there's so much emotion in this business that the average agent who comes into this with no authority, no prior experience negotiating with people and problem solving with people, like a lot of great police officers have. Yep. They bring even more emotion to an already stressful process of buying a home. I can imagine that one of your superpowers, and I already know that it is, in the negotiation process, is that you are just the sort of the calming force, right? As Mike Ferry always says, right? You make a what can be very, very stressful environment of delivering somebody bad news that they didn't get their offer accepted, or even good news that they did get their offer accepted, but there are still, some contingencies that we have to get through. You keep the process calm, right?
Yeah. I mean, this business, just like law enforcement, is definitely a profession where people have a lot of different types of emotional reactions, right? Whether it's excitement, it's sadness, it's anger. And so, being able to effectively communicate with them and remove emotion from the equation is something that I definitely think, not only just in negotiations, but in, helping people quantify value in the types of homes they're looking at or the neighborhoods they're looking at. It's something that's invaluable.